Bismillaahi walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala wa ba'd. Returning then back to a discussion of some of the oppositions of the Manhaj al-Salafi that are present within the advice and in other lectures of Abu Usaama Khaleefah. We discussed in the last session some of the athar of the Salaf and how Abu Usaama has opposed them, and in this session we want to continue in that vein and mention, as we're highlighting the errors, mention that which it opposes from the methodology and from the Manhaj Salafi. And it's an unfortunate reality that the Manhaj Salafi has now become diluted in the heads of many individuals, in fact many are Salafi, and they have now judged with scales, brothers and sisters, that oppose the scales of the Salaf of this Ummah. And it is that needs addressing, and it is that balance that needs to be re-established for those who don't truly understand what Salafiyah is. Na'am, we hear Salafiyah is Kitab and Sunnah. Na'am, Salafiyah and the Salafiyun are individuals who deal with Dalil. But Ikhwan, the intricate issues of Salafiyah, points of Manhaj, points that we should be understanding as people of Sunnah, people who claim to be upon the way of Ashab al-Athar and the way of Ahlul Hadith, then those issues of methodology and Manhaj need to be understood with their evidences and with the narrations from the Salaf of this Ummah. Because Ikhwan, many will claim to be calling you to Salafiyah, and many will claim to call you to the Book of Allah Azza wa Jal, while in actuality they've really thrown it behind their backs. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, that great Sahabiul Jaleel, who the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Raditu bi ummati ma radiya biha ibn ummi abd. Raditu li ummati ma radiya biha ibn ummi abd." I am pleased with for this ummah with that which Ibn Ummi Abd is pleased with for this ummah, and that is another one of the names and references of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu. Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, he advises his ummah, alaykum bil ilm, cling to ilm, that is true knowledge. Not just, brothers and sisters, a nice enthralling lecture or the explanation of a hadith or the mention of some generally accepted principles and generally accepted affairs within the deen. Rather, true knowledge that is based upon foundations, ta'sis, knowledge that is based in fundamentals and foundations that are solid, and that on the basis of that, if a person understands them and he nurtures himself upon them and then grows in the knowledge of the deen, sitting with Ahlul Ilm and benefiting that from them, then he becomes from the Rasikhun, if Allah Azza wa Jal blesses him. That Allah Azza wa Jal mentions وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ يَقُولُونَ آمَنَّا بِهِ. Concerning the ambiguous verses in the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal mentions that those who are firmly grounded in knowledge, they say we believe in it. And that yaqeen that they have is based upon the solid principles that they find themselves upon and that they work with and that they believe in. And it is those principles, Ikhwan, that Abu Usaama Dhahabi opposes left, right and center in the lectures that he gives, though they may appear to have evidences or be backed in evidences. Just the quotation of a hadith or the quotation of a verse, Ikhwan, misunderstood is not considered ilm at all. And so we should be careful who we attribute ilm and knowledge to. Another thing that is important for us to mention concerning these sittings is that individuals may say, well, why launch an attack against Abu Usaama? Why not go and speak to him? Brothers, when those mistakes have been made publicly and they are in the public domain, it is now compulsory to clarify them publicly. And as far as advising Abu Usaama Dhahabi, then no one can say that we never did so. Because I myself, and I know my brother Abu Khadija and others, I myself, when I was in the Islamic University in the 90s, and it had reached us that Abu Usaama was working with this deviated group, this deviated Jam'iyyah Ihyā al-Turath, that when we had been acquainted with the statements of the scholars concerning this Jam'iyyah, Shaykh Muqbil rahimahullaah ta'ala, at the time when people were saying take the money and run, Shaykh Muqbil said, la, leave the money and run. Shaykh Rabi' bin Hadi al-Madkhali rahimahullah hafidhahullah ta'ala, similarly advising against Ihyā al-Turath and that which they were upon from qawaid and principles opposing the Manhaj al-Salafi, and then being upon the Manhaj of ar-Rahmaani Abdul Khaliq, who was likewise refuted at that particular time for his opposition to the methodology of the Salaf. And that, Ikhwan, is the point. This is the issue. that these refutations are not refutations except that revolve around opposition of the deen of Allah. This is Allah Azza wa Jal's deen. It is not our deen or the deen of any alim or any scholar. It is the deen of Allah subhanahu, the one who knows of it and is acquainted with it. It is imperative when he sees it being opposed and when he sees that being spread, it is imperative that that opposition is clarified. Like it who like it and dislike it who wants to dislike it. That is a reality. In actuality, ikhwan, if we had our belief in the right place, then we would be angry at the one who opposes the deen and spreads that among the people and has those oppositions accepted by the shabab, the impressionable young ones, and those individuals who are not firmly grounded. And so our clarification revolves around this. And as I said, nobody can say we didn't advise. I myself, when I heard then of him working with the Yahyah, I remember when he came to Hajj while I was still a student in the university, I saw it imperative upon myself to take him aside. I took him aside, I took him in a room, and he will remember likewise, wajhan bi wajh, face to face. And I spoke to him directly, took him aside, and advised him about the Jam'iyyat Ihya al-Turath, and that if one were to leave it, then Allah Azza wa Jalla will replace it with that which is better, and the fact that he is an example for the Shabab as-Salafi in the West, and that the people look towards him, and the scholars are saying such and such, and that being an example, you should be the one that implements the advice of the scholars, and so on. And he looked at me with a smirk and said, Abu Hakeem, do you believe that I'm begging Ihya al-Turath, take me from here? And he pointed towards his rear end. And so people, ikhwan, when we're talking about advising, we know only too well that which is related to giving advice, and we know only too well how advice is taken by certain individuals most of the time. And that then requires that we take the affair to the public domain. If the sahib al-khata, if the one who has made the mistake does not wish to save face and advise the public himself concerning his own mistake, then it is a must, ikhwan, that we then take that upon ourselves to clarify the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal in truth, and to highlight who has opposed it and who has established principles that oppose the manhaj as-Salafi as-Sahih. There is an issue from the issues that our brother has opposed the methodology and the manhaj of the Salaf in regards to, that we hear him mentioning throughout his lectures, and that is the affair of imtihan and testing the people by way of people. And then we find throughout his lectures, in a number of lectures, he mentions this issue, that now we see the people testing the people by way of people. What do you say about such and such? This affair of imtihan is one that the Salaf of this ummah would act upon, that they knew, that they saw to be a principle that was from the principles of Salafiyah in regards to how the Salafis deal with and look upon other individuals and deal with opposition to the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. It may be that in a particular era, because of the widespread nature of an opposition to the deen, or the widespread nature of a particular innovation, that the people of Sunnah see that it now becomes imperative for us to test the people in relation to where they stand in terms of that fitna. Because our issue is keeping clear of fitna, staying away from fitna. And so Ahlus Sunnah of the past, ikhwan, and the scholars of the Sunnah used to test the people in relation to where they were and where they stood as it relates to some of the innovations that appeared at their time. But listen to the statement of Abu Usaama concerning this issue.
He said, when times changed and people deteriorated greatly, innovations became widespread, and there arose many callers invited away from the way of truth.
And this, incidentally, is him speaking about al-Imam, or the Sharh al-Sunnah of Imam al-Bukhaaree, and he's mentioning a point here from Sharh al-Sunnah.
And inviting to the way that was far from the Jama'ah. People were tried with things which neither the Prophet ﷺ nor any of his companions spoke about. Again, an example of that is the Quran. Some people started saying that the Quran was created, and they would test you, and they would come and grab you and say, what do you say about the Quran? Is it created or not created? And depending upon your answer, you will get benefit in the dunya or you get harmed in the dunya. This question, is the Quran created? And they would ask you that question. The Imams of the Salaf, they used to say, did the Prophet ﷺ order us to test people with this? Did the companions order people to test people with questions like that? They came to Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu during the fitna that transpired between Ali and Muawiyah. Ali and Muawiyah started having disagreements, and it led to a war. They came to Ibn Abbas and they tested him and they said, who are you with? Are you with the group of Ali? Are you with the Shiite of Muawiyah? He said, I'm not with the Shiite of Ali and I'm not with the Shiite of Muawiyah. I'm with the book of Allah wherever it takes me. That question, where does it come from? Today we have people who are upon this type of Islam, calling it a Salafiyya even, testing you. What do you think about Abu Hassan al-Ma'rabi? What's your position? The man says, who is that? I don't know who that is. I don't know who Abu Hassan al-Ma'rabi is. And they test people based on questions like that. What do you have to say about Shaykh so-and-so? If you say, I don't agree with everything that he says, then they throw you outside of the minhaj of a Salaf. And Imam al-Barbahari, 329, is telling us, and this is why we study books like this type of issue is not from our religion. Even
so here we hear him making mention of the fact that Imam al-Barbahari is the one who is saying that this is not from our religion. He mentions an example of that which took place between two companions, Ridwanullah alayhim, Ali ibn Abi Talib and Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. An issue, brothers and sisters, where the two of them made ijtihad, as is the belief of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, that they both made ijtihad and they will be rewarded for their ijtihad. Two companions, noble companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then the third companion who was asked about this fitna that took place between two companions. What is your position in relation to it? And then look how he makes qiyas, an analogy upon that situation between two noble companions. Both of them being from the mujtahidun and from those who are rewarded for their ijtihad and for their striving to come to that which is correct. Look how he compares that between that which takes place now between Ahlus Sunnah and Ahlul Bid'ah. On the one hand, we have an individual who is referred to as a mubtadi', a person of innovation. Ahlus Sunnah, on the other hand, and then this person who claims to be upon the Sunnah is questioned about that mubtadi' and about this bid'ah. And that person then responds in accordance with what he believes. If he's a person of Sunnah, then he will have no issue with such a question and he will have no issue with its response. The only person that would have an issue with that is one who has an inclination towards the one who's being disparaged. But Ahlus Sunnah, past and present, continue to view that that was something that was permissible, in fact necessary. But look, ikhwan, at the talbis of the man. Look at the deception of the man. He mentions that this was what Imam al-Barbahari was teaching. And listen, brothers, to this point in Sharh al-Sunnah of Imam al-Barbahari. Well, Imam al-Barbahari, now this actually deals with the affair of testing and trials and testing. He mentions وَالْمِحْنَةُ فِي الْإِسْلَامِ بِدْعَةٌ وَأَمَّا الْيَوْمِ فيمتحن بالسنة لقوله إن هذا العلم دين فانظروا عمن تأخذون دينكم وقوله لا تقبلوا الحديث إلا ممن تقبلون شهادته فتنظر فإن كان صاحب سنة له معرفة صدوقا كتبت عنه وإلا تركته. Then he mentions that indeed al-mihna, this affair of this trial in Islam, is a bid'ah. The trial here was a reference to how Ahlul Bid'ah tried the people of Sunnah. like, for example, the affair of Khalq al-Quran. Now, concerning this statement, Shaykh Rabi' bin Hadi al-Madkhali حفظه المولى ورعاه, he mentioned يعني جاء المعتزلة يعني الجهمية ويسمون بالمعتزلة وهم جهمية في عهد المأمون. He said that the Mu'tazila, they came during the time of Al-Ma'mun, and they were people who were given position and station within the government and what have you. And then Al-Ma'mun, who was the Khalifa, was established upon this affair of saying that the Quran is created. He said, وَجَرُّوا الْمَأْمُونَ جَرُّوا الْمَأْمُونَ إِلَى الْقَوْلِ بِبِدْعَتِهِمْ. He said that they dragged Ma'mun into falling into this statement, this bid'ah of theirs, al-qawl bi khalq al-Quran, that the Quran is created. He said, امتحنوا أهل السنة مهنة شديدة, and Ahlus Sunnah were put under a serious trial due to it. وكانوا يدعونهم إلى القول بخلق القرآن والذي لا يستجيب لهم إما يقتل وإما يسجن. He said that indeed Ahlus Sunnah were called to this, and they would call to this affair of the Quran being created, which is against the belief of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. The Quran is the speech of Allah Azza wa Jal, uncreated. It's an attribute of Allah Azza wa Jal, and nothing from the attributes of Allah could be created. In any case, he mentioned that they call the people to this bid'ah, and that is them saying that the Quran is created. Whoever answered to them, if you responded, then you'd be left. Or if you responded in a manner that they disliked, if you responded with the response of Ahlus Sunnah, then you would be killed or imprisoned, or that your sustenance would be cut off. And so the Muslimun were tested and tried with this great fitna and this great trial. And this is an imtihan. He said, this imtihan, لا شك بدعة ضلالة لأنها دعوة إلى الضلال. He said this trial is without doubt a bid'ah and misguidance, because it is a call towards misguidance and a call towards deviation. So this trial, that is the mihna, and that is the test and the trial that Imam al-Barbahari was referring to. Then Imam al-Barbahari continues, وَأَمَّا الْيَوْمِ فَيُمْتَحَنُ بِالسُّنَّةِ. But as far as today, now, our time, and that was the statement of Imam al-Barbahari, who spoke in the 4th century, died in the year 329. That he mentioned, as far as today is concerned though, as far as now in our time, then one is tried with the sunnah. Individuals are tried with the sunnah. And that is, he continues and explains why. He mentions, on the basis of his statement, and that is the statement of Al-Imam Muhammad bin Sirin, إِنَّ هَذَا الْعِلْمَ دِينٌ. On the basis of the statement of this Imam. And this will highlight as well the fact that the Salafis, Ikhwan, we do work with and use as evidence the athar and the narrations of the Salaf of this Ummah. Are they Quran and Sunnah? No. But Ikhwan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed nur in their statements, and their statements are in accordance with the Kitab and with the Sunnah. And those that are in error and those that oppose the book and the Sunnah, then our scholars have clarified that. Those that do not oppose the Kitab and the Sunnah, then our scholars work with them. Here then Imam al-Barbahari, he mentions, Inna hadha al-ilma deen. Verily this knowledge is deen. فَانظُرُوا عَمَّنْ تَأْخُذُونَ دِينَكُمْ. So look towards who you take your deen from. And on the basis of the statement, do not accept hadith except from one who you would accept his testimony. And so he mentions, so one should look then, فَإِنْ كَانَ صَاحِبْ سُنَّةٍ, one should look at the individual that he takes his knowledge from. If he's a person of sunnah, له معرفة صدوق أو صدوقا كتبت عنه. If he is a person of sunnah and he possesses ma'rifah and he has ilm and he is trustworthy and truthful, then you will take from him. Otherwise he is left. And that is the principle, ikhwan, particularly in this YouTube age. In this age of YouTube. And in this age of clicking through. Ikhwan, individuals now are subject themselves to listening to anything. Anything that's on YouTube. As long as he starts with Inna alhamdulillah, then one listens to it and it takes it in and it's a beneficial lecture and so on. Not knowing who that individual is. Wallahi, ikhwan, the Salaf of this ummah were never like this. The Salaf of this ummah initially began by ascertaining who that person is. Checking him out. Testing him. And when they knew of his veracity and they knew he was a person of Sunnah and upright and praised by the people of Sunnah, then they would take from him. Shaykh al-Fawzan, he mentions concerning that statement, وَأَمَّا الْيَوْمَ, as far as today is concerned, then we do test with the Sunnah. Shaykh al-Fawzan, he mentions, أي في وقته فصار يمتهن بالسنة لأنها كثرت الفرق الضالة التي تدعي الإسلام فلا بد أن يعرف من هو على السنة ولا يغتر بكونه يدعي الإسلام. He mentioned, as far as today is concerned, that is, in his time, in the time of Imam al-Bukhaaree. If this is what he was saying in his time, then what about ikhwan in our time? As far as in his time, he mentions, then people were tested with the Sunnah because the groups and the deviant groups had become many. Many from among those who claim Islam. So it is a must to know who from them is Ahlus Sunnah, who is upon the Sunnah. So one does not become beguiled and deceived by the fact that they claim Islam. فالذي يحب أهل السنة هذا دليل على أنه من أهل الخير والذي يحب أهل البدعة فهذا دليل على أنه من أهل الشر. That is a statement of Shaykh al-Fawzan. He continues, the one who has love for the people of Sunnah then this is an evidence that he is from the people of khair, the people of good. And those who have love for Ahlul Bid'ah, then this is an evidence that these individuals are from Ahlul Shar, are from the people of evil. And so having love for the people of Sunnah is from the evidence that a person is from Ahlul Khair. And thus one is tested with the people. One is tested either with the people of Bid'ah or with the people of Sunnah. That is, one is tested to see where they stand in relation to such and such a person of innovation that is prevalent in that time. And individuals are tested with the people of Sunnah, yani with the ulama of Ahlus Sunnah, and not any alim. And this is a point, ikhwan, that we're going to clarify. Not any alim. The alim that is known for dhabbi an sunnah wa an ahliha. The one that is well known for his defense of Ahlus Sunnah and his defense of the people of Sunnah, and well known للرد على أهل البدعة, well known for refuting the people of innovation and having strong stances in that regard. Those, as it relates to the Salaf, those were who they used to test the people. They didn't use any alim. Rather, they used the alim that was most well known for that. And that, brothers and sisters, is the methodology and the manhaj of the Salaf of this ummah. And this issue then of al-imtihan and of testing the people, the one who holds and claims that it is not from our methodology to do so is one that is jahil concerning the reality of the manhaj al-Salafi al-Sahih al-Mubarak. Ikhwan, Ahlus Sunnah, past and present, test the people concerning where they are in relation to Sunnah or Bid'ah. And one of the clearest evidences, because our brother mentions this question, where does it come from? One of the clearest evidences for the testing and trying the people in accordance with whether they are or they have love and allegiance for the people of Sunnah or disallegiance for them, or love for the people of Bid'ah, as the case may be. One of the first of the evidences that is utilized in that regard is a statement of Allah Azza wa Jalla in Surah Mumtahina. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu idha ja'akumul mu'minatul muhajirat famtahinuhun. Allahu a'lamu bi imanihin. That Allah mentions, O ye who believe, if the believing women who make hijrah, seek to make migration, come to you, famtahinuhun, then test them. Famtahinuhun, test them. Allahu a'lamu bi imanihin. Allah knows best concerning their iman. But you test them. فإن علمتموهن مؤمنات فلا ترجعوهن إلى الكفار. When you know of them to be mu'minat, when it is certain and you're sure that they are mu'minat, then do not return them to the kuffar. That is, that there were women who migrated at the time of the Messenger ﷺ to be with the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, and because of their love for Islam and their hatred for kufr. But from them were those who left because they had problems with their husbands. And so the Messenger was commanded to test them. And in relation to that test, we have the athar and the narration of Mujahid, who mentions, rahimahullah ta'ala, فَامْتَحِنُوهُنْ فَاسْأَلُوهُنَّ أَمَّا جَاءَ بِهِنْ فَإِنْ جَاءَ بِهِنَّ غضب على أزواجهن أو سخط أو غيره ولم يؤمن فارجعوهن إلى أزواجهن. That the meaning of the verse Mujahid rahimahullah ta'ala he mentions is that you should ask them concerning what has brought you here, what made you make the migration. If they have come on the basis of being angry with their husbands and displeased with their husbands, or other than that, and not that they believed, then return them back to their husbands. Qatada radiyallahu anhu rahimahullah he mentions, كانت مهنتهن أن يستحلفن. That is, their test was that they would be made to swear by Allah. ما أخرجكن النشوز وما أخرجكن إلا حب الإسلام وأهله وحرص عليه فإذا قلنا ذلك قبل ذلك منهن. He mentions that their test was that they would be made to swear by Allah that nothing brought you out, or that it was not nushuz, yani marital discord, that made you leave. And you did not leave except due to love for Islam and its people, and having ardentness and a desire for it. And if they accepted that, and if they mentioned that that was the case, then that would be accepted from them. And so here we have an example of testing the people and questioning the people concerning where they are, what they believe in, what their stance is in relation to particular affairs from the deen. And that then establishes for us one of the evidences from the Quran. From the Sunnah, of course, we have the hadith of Muawiyah ibn al-Hakam, who, when Muawiyah had slapped his slave girl and he regret what he did, he went to the Messenger ﷺ, and the Messenger tested his slave girl. And he tested her with the statement, where is Allah? Aqeedah. And so she pointed to the heavens. Fis sama, she said, he is over the heavens. And then he said, and who am I? She said, you're the Messenger of Allah. And so the Messenger said, free her, for verily she's a slave, she's a believer. Free her, because verily she's a believer. And thus, ikhwan, this from the book, from the Sunnah, establishes the fact that testing in certain circumstances is from the deen, it is permissible, and it is what we saw Ahlus Sunnah past and present being upon. And listen to this in contrast to the statement of Abu Usaama. This question, where does it come from? It comes from the deen, Yahyah. It comes from the usul of our religion, from the nusus of the kitab and the sunnah. Listen then to the statements of the salaf of this ummah in this regard. Concerning this affair, we have the statement of Mahdi bin Hilal, who mentioned, أتيت سليمان التيمي فوجدت عنده حماد بن زيد وزيد بن زريع وبشر بن المفضل وأصحابنا من البصريين. He said that I approached and I went to see Sulaiman at-Taymi, and I found with him Hamad ibn Zayd. Sulaiman at-Taymi, that great Imam, ikhwan, that great scholar from the scholars of the Salaf, that Tabi'i, who was thiqa, trustworthy and upright, and who died in the year 143, Sulaiman ibn Tarkhan at-Taymi. He mentioned, I went to Sulaiman at-Taymi and I found with him Hamad ibn Zayd, that great Imam, and Zayd ibn Zuray' and Bishr ibn Mufaddal, and our other companions of ours from Basra. He said, فَكَانَ لَا يُحَدِّثُ أَحَدًا حَتَّى يَمْتَحِنَهُ. He said he did not used to narrate to anyone until he tested him. He didn't narrate to any individual until he tested him. فَيَقُولُ لَهُ الزِّنَا بِقَدَرٍ. And so he would say to him, zina, is it in accordance with decree? فَإِنْ قَالَ نَعَمْ, if he says yes, then he would be made to swear أن هذا دينك الذي تدين الله به. That they would swear, or he would make them swear by Allah, that this is the deen that you believe in. This is the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal that you believe in. And look, ikhwan, how the Salaf of this ummah acted in accordance with the Sunnah. As Qatada radiallahu anhu, rahimahullah, mentions, Qatada said that they would come to the Messenger sallallahu, the imtihan was that they would come, and then the Messenger sallallahu would make them swear by Allah that you didn't leave because of displeasure with your husband. Here we have Sulaiman al-Taymi carrying out the same thing. He would ask them, az-zina biqadar, and naturally returning back to the affair of the belief of the Qadariyah, that the actions of the servants were not from the decree of Allah, did not fall under the decree of Allah Azza wa Jal, not that Allah has forced them, but that it was decreed for them to carry out that action. Again, not the belief of the Jabariyah that Allah forced them to carry the action out, they carried it out by their own free will. But does that action and its occurrence fall under the will of Allah Azza wa Jal generally? Of course, there is nothing that leaves the will of Allah subhanahu. And so they would be questioned concerning the belief of the Qadariyah, who believe that the actions of the servants had nothing to do with the qadr of Allah Azza wa Jal. In fact, Allah didn't even know about the actions of the servants until the servants carried those actions out. That is their belief. And so he would test them. Zina, is it with qadr? Is it in accordance with the decree of Allah? They would say yes. And then if they said yes, he would test them and make them swear by Allah that this is the deen that you believe in. So if they swore, حدثه خمسة أحاديث. If they swore by Allah, then he would narrate to them 5 hadith. 5 hadith. Again, ikhwan, establishing the fact that the Salaf of this ummah believed and followed and carried out this imtihan and testing the people. So this is where this testing is coming from. Likewise, we have that which was narrated by Imam Hakim, who said, سمعت أبا سعيد بن أبي بكر يقول لما وقع من أمر الكلابية ما وقع بنيسابور كان أبو العباس السراج يمتهن أولاد الناس فلا يحدث أولاد الكلابية فأقامني في المجلس مرة فقال قل أنا أبرأ إلى الله تعالى من الكلابية فقلت إن قلت هذا لا يطعمني أبي الخبز فضحك وقال دعوا هذا. That it was mentioned here by Imam Hakim, who said that I heard the scholar, the Imam Abu Sa'id ibn Abi Bakr, that he said when the affair of the Kullabiyah occurred in Naysabur, when this fitna and this bid'ah appeared in Naysabur, that great Imam Abu al-Abbas al-Siraj and this great Imam Ikhwan Muhammad ibn Ishaq Abu al-Abbas al-Siraj, who was referred to as Shaykh al-Islam and the Muhaddith of Khurasan, and well known Ikhwan and declared as trustworthy by a number of the scholars, Ishaq bin Rahawayh and others, that he would not narrate to the children of the Kullabiyah. He would not narrate to the children of the Kullabiyah. He said, فَأَقَامَنِي فِي الْمَجْلِسِ مَرَّةً. This Abu Sa'id, who was one of the youth, one of the children who was and used to take hadith from Abu Abbas, he said, so he made me stand up in the sitting on an occasion, and he said to me, قُلْ أَنَا أَبْرَأْ إِلَى اللَّهِ تَعَالَى مِنَ الْكُلَّابِيَّةِ. Say that I am free, and I declare my freeness from the Kullabiyah. I declare to Allah my freeness from the Kullabiyah. So he said, I said to him, if I say that, then my father won't give me any bread tonight. And so he laughed and said, leave this one alone. And this establishes then the fact that they would test and they would try people in accordance with the bid'ah and the innovations that were prevalent at that time. They wouldn't ask them, ikhwan, about a bid'ah that wasn't prevalent at that time. And it is not said that, oh, this is a bid'ah that is not in this land or is not here. Again, that is a big fallacy. That these innovations, ikhwan, as our brother himself mentioned, that the world now is a global village. Ikhwan, a bid'ah arises in the farthest corner of the globe, and it will be here, Ikhwan, with the pressing of a button, with the pressing of an enter key. It reaches Great Britain and America and the rest of our countries. So what is our brother talking about? It hasn't reached here. And so, Ikhwan, they would test them in relation to the bid'ah and the innovations that were prevalent at that time. Now, another example of that is that which occurs, Ikhwan, a beautiful narration that Imam al-Dhahabi mentions upon the authority of Al-Qasim ibn Abi Salih, who mentions جاء أيام الحج أبو بكر محمد بن الفضل القسطاني وحريش ابن أحمد إلى إبراهيم ابن الحسين الهمذاني فسأل عن حديث الإفك رواية الفوري عن مالك فهانت منه التفاته. He said that the two individuals, Abu Bakr Muhammad ibn al-Fadl and Huraysh ibn Ahmad, they approached a scholar by the name of Ibrahim ibn al-Husayn al-Hamadani, and they asked him, the two of them asked him about the hadith of al-Ifk, which is the hadith of the lie that was forged against Aisha radiallahu anha concerning her falling into acts of lewdness and what have you, a popular hadith. And the riwayah of the hadith, or the version of the hadith that was narrated by Al-Farawi, who narrated from Malik. And so they saw from him that he went to narrate. And so they said, Ya Aba Ishaq, tuhaddith az-Zanadiqa. He said, Oh Aba Ishaq, do you narrate to the Zanadiqa? Do you narrate to the heretics? And when they saw, when the two of them saw that he went to narrate, they stopped and they looked at each other and they said, Ya Aba Ishaq, addressing this Imam, Ya Aba Ishaq, do you narrate to the Zanadiqa? Do you narrate to the heretics? And so he was confused and said, And who is the heretic? Waman is Zindiq? Who's the heretic? Where's the heretic? And so they responded by saying, Inna Aba Hatim al-Razi la yuhaddithu hatta yamtahin. He said that indeed Aba Hatim al-Razi, he did not used to narrate to anyone until he tested them. So they saw from him that he was just about to start narrating. And so they said, Do you narrate to heretics? And so he said, Who's the heretic? He said, Aba Hatim al-Razi, that great Imam from the A'immah of Ahlus Sunnah, from the A'immatul Hadith. He said that he didn't used to narrate to anyone لا يحدث حتى يمتحن, until he tested them. فقال أبو حاتم عندنا أمير المؤمنين في الحديث والامتحان ودين الخوارج. And so he said, Abu Hatim, as far as we're concerned, is Amir al-Mu'mineen fil Hadith, no doubt. But the imtihan, this testing thing, is the deen of the Khawarij as far as I'm concerned. Is the way of the Khawarij. من حضر مجلسي فكان من أهل السنة سمع ما تقر به عينه ومن كان من أهل البدعة يسمع ما يسخن به يسخن الله به عينه. He said, as far as I'm concerned, then whoever comes to my sitting, if he's from Ahlus Sunnah, then he'll hear what is the coolness of his eyes. And if he's from Ahlul Bid'ah, then he'll hear what Allah will burn his eyes by way of it. Or he will hear from me that which Allah Azza wa Jal will burn his eyes due to it. And so the Imam, he mentions, فَقَامَا وَلَمْ يَسْمَعَا مِنْهُ. He said, when he said that statement, yeah, and as far as I'm concerned, I don't test the people. Whoever comes from Ahlul Sunnah, then he'll hear what pleases him. And if he's from Ahlul Bid'ah, then he'll dislike what he hears. When he heard that, when the two of them heard him say that, قَامَا وَلَمْ يَسْمَعَا مِنْهُ. The both of them stood and they left and they didn't hear from him. They didn't listen to him, didn't take from him. Because they saw that he wasn't stringent in terms of who he narrates to and who he has in his sitting and in his gatherings. Likewise, Ikhwan, we have the statement of Ahmad ibn Yusuf, who said, رأيت زهير ibn Muawiyah جاء إلى زائدة ابن قدامة. زائدة ibn Qudama, that great Imam min a'immat Ahlus Sunnah, from the a'imma of hadith. Zaida ibn Qudama al-Thaqafi, who was from the region of Kufa. He mentioned فكلمه في رجل يحدثه فقال أمن أهل السنة هو. So يعني Ahmad ibn Yunus, he said that Zuhair ibn Muawiyah was in the presence of Zaida ibn Qudama, and Zaida ibn Qudama was speaking to him, yani to Zuhair, about a man that he saw him narrating to. So Zuhair was narrating to a man, to an individual. Zaida ibn Qudama, this Imam, he saw Zuhair narrating to a man, so afterwards he asked him, I mean Ahlus Sunnati who? Is he from Ahlus Sunnah? And so Zuhair responded by saying, Ma a'rifuhu bi bid'ah. I don't know of him being upon any bid'ah. And so he repeated, I mean Ahlus Sunnati who? He said, but is he from Ahlus Sunnah? And Zuhair said, Mata kana an-nas hakadha. He said, when have the people become like this? Responding to this question, is he from Ahlus Sunnah? When did the people become like this? And then Zaida ibn Qudama, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned, متى كان يشتمون أبا بكر وعمر رضي الله عنهما. He said the people became like this when people started to curse Abu Bakr and Umar. That's when. And so we have then that which is established, and establishes the fact, ikhwan, that the Salaf of this ummah used to test the people with individuals. Likewise, we have the statement of Abu Hasan al-Hamadani, who said, Ahmad ibn Hanbal mihnatun bihi yu'raf al-Muslim min al-Zindiq. He said Ahmad ibn Hanbal is a trial. Yani Ahmad ibn Hanbal himself was a test. By way of him, the Muslim is known from the heretic. By way of him, the Muslim is known from the Zindiq. And that was another one of the ways that we saw Ahlus Sunnah put individuals to trial, by asking them about people. What is your stance, or what do you say about such and such an alim? What do you say about such and such a scholar? And listen to the many narrations that occur and that have been narrated by our Salaf in that regard. We have the narration of Ahmad ibn Abdullah ibn Yunus, who mentioned امتحنوا أهل موصل بمعافى ابن عمران فإن أحبوا فهو من أهل السنة وإن أبغضوا فهو من أهل البدعة. He mentions that indeed the people of Mosul were tested with al-Mu'afa bin Imran, with Mu'afa ibn Imran. If they loved him, then he was from Ahlus Sunnah. Nowadays, ikhwan, people say, oh yeah, this is petty. Ya akhi, this is manhaj salafi. If they loved him, then he was from Ahlus Sunnah. And if they hated him, then they were from Ahlul Bid'ah. Just on the basis of their love or their hatred for a man that wasn't a Sahabi, wasn't a companion, wasn't the messenger of Allah, wasn't a prophet. Rather, an alim from the ulama of Ahlus Sunnah that was well known. Mu'afa ibn Imran was well known for his strong stance against the people of innovation. And this, ikhwan, is the factor. This strong stance against the people of innovation and rebutting and refuting bid'ah and innovations in their time. That was the mi'yar and the yardstick of who would be used as a trial and a test for the people. Again, not any alim, rather those who were known for their strong stances against the people of innovation and rebutting bid'ah, because that is a true yardstick. Similarly, we have the statement of Sufyan al-Thawri, rahimahullah ta'ala, who mentions, امتحنوا أهل موصل بالمعافى bin Imran. Sufyan al-Thawri, again, reiterating the same fact. The people of Mosul were tested with al-Mu'afa ibn Imran. Sufyan likewise mentioned, أهل موصل were tested بالمعافى. امتحنوا أهل موصل بالمعافى. فمن ذكره يعني بخير هؤلاء أصحاب السنة والجماعة ومن عابه قلت هؤلاء أصحاب بدعة. That they would test the people by way of al-Mu'afa. If they mentioned him with good, then it was said these are people of Sunnah. and Jama'ah. And if they dispraised him, then it was said that these are people of bid'ah. As simple as that. As simple as that. Now, Ikhwan, we now have brought in these new falsafat and this philosophy now that we hear people using. But the Sunnah and the Salaf of this Ummah, Ikhwan, tested the people in this manner. Tested Ahlus Sunnah from Ahlul Bid'ah in this manner. What do you say about such and such? Naam, hakadha. Abu Hatim al-Razi, he mentions علامة أهل البدعة الوقيعة في أهل الأثر. One of the signs of the people of bid'ah is that they speak ill of the people of athar. They speak ill of the people of the narrations. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah ta'ala, ikhwani, mentions in Majmu' al-Fatawa, volume 15, page 329 to 330, he mentioned وَمَعْرِفَةُ أَهْوَالِ النَّاسِ تَارَةً تَكُونُ بِالشَّهَادَاتِ النَّاسِ وتارة تكون بالجرح والتعديل وتارة تكون بالاختبار والامتحان. He said to have knowledge of the states of the people, how they are, the reality of someone. Sometimes it is by way of the testimonies of the people. Sometimes it is by way of jarh wa ta'dil, and sometimes it is, and this is again affair of jarh wa ta'dil, that is the disparaging statements that have been made against them or the statements of praise that have been made for them. That is sometimes how we know. So sometimes it is somebody gives testimony, or sometimes it is on the basis of jarh wa ta'dil, and sometimes he mentions وَتَارَةً تَكُونُ بِالْإِخْتِبَارِ وَالْإِمْتِحَانِ, by testing and trying them. By testing them. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. So even in the Middle Ages, Ikhwan, Shaykh al-Islam still affirms this affair of testing and trying the people. So when did this change? When did this methodology change? Where is the change? Where did it come about? Except at the hands of the likes of Abu Hassan, Ali Hassan, Adnan Ar-Ur, Abdul Razak al-Shayji, and these other individuals, Ikhwan, of bid'ah and innovation, Abdul-Rahman Abdul-Khaliq, and others, in introducing this and then being taken, Ikhwan, and championed by the likes of Abu Usaama Dhahabi. Hadahullah. Similarly, we have the statement of that great Imam from the A'immat al-Najdiyah, Imam Abdul Latif ibn Abdul Rahman. He mentions Ahlus Sunnah wal Hadith fi kulli makan wa zaman hum mihnatu ahli al-ard. ويمتاز أهل السنة والجماعة بمحبتهم والثناء عليهم ويعرف أهل البدع والاختلاف بعيبهم وشناعتهم. That he mentions أهل السنة والحديث in every time and place. They are a trial for the people of the world. And أهل السنة والجماعة are distinguished by having love for them and praising them. And Ahlul Bid'ati wal Ikhtilaf are known for their dispraise of them and them speaking ill of them. That is how Ahlus Sunnah are known. And so we hear the statement of Abu Usaama, again, that we hear him saying. And so nowadays we hear the people saying, and they test and ask a person about Abu Hassan al-Ma'ribi. And that is as it relates to Ahlul Bid'ah in our time. Naam, the people are tested and tried with that. Where does this question come from? Our brother asks. From the manhaj as-Salafi, we respond. That manhaj, Ikhwan, that our brother is clearly unaware of and clearly ignorant of. And then he mentions, or they will say, what do you say about Shaykh such and such? Clearly an indication here to Shaykh Rabi', because he mentions clearly elsewhere in other places, mentions his name clearly. What do you say about Shaykh such and such? And if you say, I don't agree with everything that he says, they say you're not on the manhaj. Again, Ikhwan, if he responds by saying, I don't agree with everything that he says, Billahi alaykum, Ikhwan, Billahi alaykum, I ask you by Allah, and alim, an Imam from the A'immah of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and from the great scholars of Ahlus Sunnah. And we say, Ikhwan, Shaykh Rabi' it is not me that refers to Shaykh Rabi' as an Imam. And we're going to mention some of the statements of the ulama, of the ai of our time concerning him. It is not me that mentions and refers to him as an Imam. But we're going to see who from Ahlul Ilm refers to him and gives him those types of praise. If an alim min ulama'i Ahlus Sunnah, ikhwan, a person of Sunnah and Jama'ah is asked about an alim from the ulama of Ahlus Sunnah, knowing the principle, كل يؤخذ من قوله ويرد, knowing, as Imam Malik said, everyone, we accept some of their statements and we reject some of their statements. Why would you respond if someone were to ask you, what is your opinion about mathalan Shaykh al-Albani? And that person were to respond, his answer was, I don't agree with everything that he says. Would you consider that a statement of praise, Yahi? Would you consider that a statement of a noble statement and a statement that indicates that that person has love for that individual? Somebody asks you about Shaykh Abdul Aziz bin Baz, and the first thing that comes out of your mouth is, I don't agree with everything that he says. You wouldn't have a problem with hearing that answer from a Sahib Sunnah? Or would the person of Sunnah say, Imam, Shaykhana, Sahib Sunnah wal Hadith wal Athar? Wouldn't you praise that alim? Why would that be the response that comes out of your mouth, other than the fact that there is something in your heart for that alim? And thus, brothers and sisters, we see the types of trickery that are used, the types of forms of deception that are used, ikhwan, to fortify this position, and then spreading that among the shabab and attempting to have the youth accept that and take that on board as their methodology, and in fact using that to dispraise Ahlus Sunnah and the people of Sunnah who live among them from the people who live in their city. Dispraising the people of Sunnah by way of that which was actually a characteristic of praise among the scholars of the past and the scholars of present. So why then, ikhwan, why would a person have a problem with such an issue other than the fact that he himself has opposed that which Ahlus Sunnah is upon from the manhaj that they hold, and he in actuality is the one that is on this Salafiyya Jadida. This Salafiyya Jadida, ikhwan, a term that Abu Usaama utilizes and uses, which is in actuality coined and was coined first by the likes of Abdul Razak al-Shayji, another deviant individual who our scholars have spoken against, using this term to refer to Ahlus Sunnah. He refers to them as, or to their methodology as, Salafiyya Jadida. Yani it's a new Salafiyya. It is not a Salafiyya that we know of. And ikhwan, in the next session, inshallah, we're going to mention begin by mentioning some of the praise of the scholars of this ummah for Shaykh Rabi', for this alim and this imam in the Sunnah, because of the fact that this statement, ikhwan, is of importance, so we can view correctly the position of Abu Usaama concerning the likes of our Shaykh Rabi', and that we may view correctly the stance concerning this issue of testing the people, either by the people of innovation like Abu Hassan, and testing the people either by the likes of the Ashab al-Sunan and the great scholars of the Sunnah in each era and each time, the likes of Shaykhana Shaykh Rabi' bin Hadi al-Madkhali حفظه المولى ورعاه. هذا والله تعالى أعلم وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد.